When Bivol fell, everyone laughed as if it were a circus act, and he was the clown in the middle of the ring. Because of that, he had no choice but to show the cruel American crowd what it truly meant to be a real fighter. Stick around until the end so you too can take part in this masterclass in pugilism, all from the safety of your seat as a mere spectator. Content. To arrive on time for Professor Bivol's masterclass, we have to go back to the year 2019. Bivol's next great challenge took shape in Joe Smith Jr., the heavy favorite, meaning he was already swimming against the current. We can't simply say it was nepotism, because Joe's punch wasn't just brutal, it was one of the hardest hitting of his generation. Generally speaking, at that time, he was one of the most aggressive fighters around, fully capable of even destroying legendary names in the ring, sending his previous opponents flying out of the ring with no respect for rank or resume. The American had truly proven that his power was a ruthless weapon, one that could impress fans and experts of the sport alike. With 24 wins, 20 of them by knockout, it's fair to say that at that time, Bivol wasn't exactly a known name in the noble art of boxing. For many, he was just another random Russian who still had to prove the quality of his ring craft. The more skeptical ones dismissed him as just another guy. But that only made the surprise more monumental once he was allowed to flow freely between the ropes. Fight summary. Taking advantage of his great physical strength, the American was the one stepping ahead in the race for victory. Not necessarily because he was outperforming Bivol, but because he was the one initiating the exchanges. However, this approach, in contrast, exposed a couple of weaknesses. Smith was slow, and he threw combinations at an average to low volume. Even while Bivol remained calm before the storm, a retrospective analysis of the bout shows that his stance worked in his favor far more than Smith's weak urge to attack.
The chant is up here. We're in Verona, New York. Not too far away from the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So it is a drive. It's quite a drive.
I think Bivol is all around a realist.
Lip service. Defense is important. No. He's going to.
Smith made the mistake of moving from simply hoping for an early knockout to outright craving it, which led him to pour all his strength into landing one clean hammer blow to finish the fight. But in front of him stood a fighter who needed to be broken down piece by piece before even thinking about how to demolish him. As if it had been predestined, Bivol's Soviet-style boxing fit perfectly with the kind of scenarios Smith liked to create. Constantly moving in and out, the Russian left no openings to exploit, giving the American very few windows to land that coveted knockout punch, or any punch at all.
Be aware of that as he tries to go inside.
Good body shot there by Bivol, and he tries Callum Johnson. So Johnson bounced back with a win here earlier. But it is difficult, Chris Maddox, to navigate. Look, if you're Bivol, you do want to make an win rounds, be responsible, and looks like he is dictating when the war is going to be made. He opens up.
Systematically, he's breaking them down, trying to discourage.
And now Bivol, Smith knows, if I get my man hurt, that's the time. You might only get one chance.
But fate, as fickle as it is cruel, did allow Bivol to learn the hard way about the power behind Smith's punches. As the saying goes, seek and you shall find. And the Americans certainly managed to find the needle in the haystack during this chilling assault on the Soviet fortress.
Joe Smith takes a deep breath.
A dangerous fighter.
A hard hook from Bivol. Able to get out of danger. Smith is. Final seconds, Smith.
You told me in the fighter meetings that you did, that your nickname was Latino Tyson.
Seconds, Smith. Trying with everything he has.
Despite being hit, the Russian was never truly in danger. Luckily for him, as the seconds ticked by and he warmed up, Bivol's hands began to loosen. He had taken the warning to heart and understood now the level of caution needed so that when the decisive moment arrived, his plan wouldn't blow up in his face. By the time both fighters were fully immersed in the battle, aggression and precision became the main course on the table. In those moments, it felt like a race to see who could be more accurate, where the prize was knocking down the opponent before being knocked down himself.
He did 60. Throwing over.
You don't know, punch stat numbers like that.
Had his moment, definitely caught him flush with that right hand.
Punches, of course, Joe Smith lands the harder to hear that Donald Curry's being accepted.
Bivol, despite the thick tension that filled the venue, maintained a state of calm that anyone working under pressure would envy. He knew that wasting even a sliver of energy was not only unnecessary but could very well lead him straight down the path to defeat. His ring IQ kept reminding him that throwing punches that don't land drains you more than you think. So Bivol stayed focused on creating the opportunity, not leaving it to chance. For both fighters, every missed punch came with a cost, one that could add up and deliver a bill far more expensive than either had bargained for.
An MLB Network, talking Hall of Fame. All right, we'll do it.
There are some years too, Brian.
Oh, hard jab from the hurt. That hook didn't quite land. That right hand did. Bivol now picks up the pace.
Throughout the fight, Smith unleashed a flurry of punches that left him drained, to put it mildly. At that moment, the Russian's killer instinct kicked in. He knew that finally the window of opportunity had opened for him. Now it was the Soviets' turn to take control of the pace of the fight.
On to 168 and fight Callum Smith, and Giddick's not universally acclaimed, but basically if he tries with the right hand and bounce it right off Smith.
It landed in the last round.
He knows. Now power shots from Bivol, backing Smith up.
At first glance, it seemed as though the American was overpowering the Russian in the ring. His stamina was impressive and his punching power was theoretically greater. These were the biggest challenges Bivol had to face. For him, this was a race to prove that his training was truly worth it. After all, other greats, like Mike Tyson, had shown that reach, height, or brute strength are nothing in front of a true warrior of the ring. Frustration can be our worst enemy, and Smith, despite having many of the qualities needed to become a legend of the sport, showed himself vulnerable to it when, unable to knock Bivol down cleanly, he executed one of the dirtiest moves ever seen in his professional boxing career. Like a true rat fighter, the American decided to charge at the Russian and slam him to the canvas without a shred of mercy, then casually walked away as if he had just pulled off the greatest move of his life.
And can punch. Now he's fighting
The definite. Wow. Now Smith meant to do that.
It goes without saying that such an action is strictly forbidden in the noble art of boxing under any circumstances. In fact, you could say luck was on Bivol's side that night because a fall caused by such a cowardly act could have easily ended in a serious injury. Now you'd think the referee would have zero tolerance for behavior like this, and if not disqualification, as the stricter ones would have ruled, then at least a deduction of points on the judges' scorecards. However, what was clear to see was the immense favoritism towards Smith. He got away with it, leaving Bivol no choice but to teach him how lessons are handed out to the most rebellious soldiers in the Soviet Union. Now taking it personally, Bivol's offense escalated to levels Smith could have never imagined. He had no real answer to such deadly fists.
And Bivol will occasionally, he has different velocity on his punches, and he will throw up. And the moment he stops punching, Bivol picks it up.
It was the final rounds and the fight was heading toward a judge's decision. But given the cloud of bias that had surrounded this fight from the very start, the Russian knew he had to push for the knockout in order to secure an undisputed victory. In theory, it sounded simple, but in practice, it was anything but.
We know why Joe Smith did that, and you can
look, Joe Smith came up short with 3 punches, 2 jabs and an overhand right. That's discouraging, that's frustrating.
Last jab from Bivol there, landed flush on the chin, and again, first shot at a world title belt. So this is his shot at the title, but this is what it's like when you find it.
Steps back far enough to counter, like not far enough to where he's away, just...
Smith, being the bigger man, had every physical advantage. Now it was Bivol's time to prove he was walking in the footsteps of true boxing legends like Iron Mike Tyson, and that he too carried the power to destroy giants of the ring.
Because he's going to need it in this round.
Now he's trying for that one shot, and it's going to be difficult. He is still poised, and you see there, beautiful.
The thing about fighting devastating punchers, they always have that puncher chance from...
So he's been caught this round. Bivol has definitely connected out in that 12th round. And the fact that he's back, that's what was said.
I guess the F word doesn't translate.
He's got 2 minutes. Bivol.
This is too quiet of a round. If I was Joe Smith Jr., I would let it from with that second right counter that Bivol landed.
Final seconds now. He really burns a lot of gas in the 11th, and now Bivol has him hurt. Hard right hand. Smith has never been down. A lot of gas in the 11th, and now Bivol has him hurt. Hard right hand. Smith has never. Bivol on the attack, but it's over. Wow.
Both fighters survived the 12 rounds, and Bivol could feel the chance to prove his punching power had just slipped away. However, what the Russian didn't know was that his exhibition of pugilism had earned him top honors on American soil. The judges had no choice but to award him the medal and diploma, shaking his hand, while secretly wishing they could crown the less deserving student of that graduating class. Against all odds, Bivol walked away with the win, leaving the cocky one stranded on the field with the bases loaded. If you've made it this far, thank you. Remember, the best way to support my content is by hitting that like button. Do you think Bivol truly earned the win, or are you one of those who still considers Smith the superior fighter? Let me know in the comments.